I never thought one night could change everything. But when my son's best friend showed up at my door, alone and unexpected, something shifted, something I wasn't ready for. I should have turned him away, should have kept my distance. But I didn't, and by the time the night was over, I had crossed a line I could never uncross. What began as an innocent visit turned into something I never anticipated, something I couldn't stop. It became one of the most surreal, electric nights of my life. Let me take you back to where it all started. That evening, the knock came late, sharp, deliberate. It sliced through the quiet of the house. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan, my son, was out of town for the weekend, and I had planned to spend the night with a book and a glass of wine, soaking in the rare stillness of being alone. But when I opened the door, my stomach tightened. Liam stood there, hands stuffed deep into the pockets of his hoodie, shoulders slightly hunched. The porch light spilled a soft glow across his face, highlighting the flicker of something uncertain in his eyes. I'd known Liam for years. He and Ethan had been inseparable since high school, and over time, he'd become part of this house, part of our family. But he had never once come here without Ethan. Not like this. "Hey, Mr. Harder," he said, offering a small, almost sheepish smile. "Sorry for just showing up like this." I frowned, stepping aside to let him in. "Liam, what's going on? You know Ethan's not here, right?" He nodded as he stepped past me, into the familiar quiet of the living room. "Yeah, I know. He hesitated, exhaled, then shook his head. "I needed to be somewhere. For a bit." Something in the way he said it made me pause. His voice was steady, but there was weight beneath it. Something unspoken. I'd watched this young man grow. From an awkward teen raiding my fridge with Ethan, into someone who carried himself with calm confidence. But tonight, he looked different. "Did something happen?" I asked, my voice low as I closed the door behind us. Liam shook his head, but I could tell it wasn't the whole truth. "It's nothing big," he said. "Just needed to get out of my place for a while." His eyes scanned the room slowly, like it was familiar but distant. Then he gave a quiet laugh. "This house always feels weirdly comforting, you know?" I studied him for a second, then nodded toward the kitchen. "You want something to drink?" He shrugged. "Sure." I led the way, my mind still turning over everything. Liam wasn't the emotional type. He'd always been the calm one between him and Ethan, the easygoing one, the one who kept things light. But tonight, there was a weight in his shoulders, and something in his eyes that lingered, like he was trying to say something without saying it. I slid a glass of water toward him. "You planning to stay long?" He took a sip, then smirked, just a little. "Depends. Am I overstaying my welcome?" I huffed a soft laugh. "You know you're always welcome here." He nodded, but his expression shifted, growing more serious. He set his glass down and exhaled. "You ever feel like you don't really belong anywhere?" The question caught me off guard. I tilted my head, studying him. "I think everyone feels that way at some point," I said honestly. "Why? You feeling like that now?" Liam let out a short laugh, shaking his head as if frustrated with himself. "I don't know. Maybe." He ran a hand through his hair, his fingers brushing along his jaw. "I just feel like I'm stuck between things, like I don't really fit where I used to." I leaned against the counter, watching him. He was holding something back. I could feel it, in the weight of his words, in the hesitation in his voice. I'd spent enough years raising Ethan, enough years as a teacher, to recognize when someone was trying, to say more than they were letting on. "You don't have to figure it all out right now," I said gently. "No one ever really does." He looked up at me then, really looked, and for a moment, the silence between us grew heavy, charged with something unspoken, just beneath the surface. It made my chest tighten, in a way I didn't quite understand. It cleared my throat, breaking the moment. "You hungry?" I asked, already moving toward the fridge. He blinked, as if shaking himself out of a thought. Yeah, sure. I pulled out some pasta I'd made earlier and started warming it up. Liam slid onto a stool at the counter, watching me with quiet curiosity. "You're a good cook," he said after a pause. I smirked. "You say that like you're surprised." He shrugged. "I guess. I never really thought about it before." I chuckled, shaking my head. "That's because you and Ethan usually raid my fridge." Without a second thought. Liam grinned at that, but there was something softer in his eyes now. I placed the warmed plate in front of him, watching as he took his first bite. The small sigh of satisfaction that escaped him sent an unexpected chill down my spine. "You really are good at this," he murmured, glancing up at me. "I can see why Ethan's always bragging about your cooking." I rolled my eyes. "Ethan brags about a lot of things." "Yeah," Liam said, quieter now. "He does." We slipped into a comfortable silence after that. Him eating, me leaning against the counter, sipping water. It should have felt normal, just like any other night he'd been over. But it didn't. There was something different tonight. In the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the way his eyes flicked toward me. When he thought I wasn't looking, his phone buzzed on the counter, cutting through the quiet. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening slightly, then flipped it face down. "Guess I should probably head out soon," he said. But he didn't move. I watched him carefully. He didn't want to leave. I could see it, in the way he lingered, in the way his fingers absent-mindedly traced the rim of his glass. And I knew I should let him go. Should have said something casual. Should have let him walk out the door. But instead, I found myself saying, "You can stay here tonight, if you want." Liam's eyes snapped up to mine. His expression was unreadable. "You mean that?" I nodded. "Yeah. If you need to be somewhere that isn't home, this can be that place." He exhaled, something in his shoulders easing, like a tension he hadn't realized he was holding had finally softened. "Thanks, Michael." The way he said my name sent a strange, unfamiliar warmth through me. He had always called me Mr. Carter. But tonight, for the first time, I was just Michael. And somehow, that felt like a shift. A quiet turning point I wasn't sure I was ready for. But even as the hours stretched on, I couldn't help but wonder, was I imagining it? Or had something between us already begun to change? Because what I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning. The living room was dimly lit, the soft golden glow of the lamp casting warm shadows along the walls. Liam sat on the couch, one arm draped lazily over the backrest, his fingers slowly tracing the fabric beneath them. I sat across from him, in the armchair, a glass of water in hand that I hadn't touched in a while. The air between us felt different now, charged, but quiet, like something was waiting. He had stayed. I didn't know why I'd invited him to. Maybe it was the way he'd hesitated at the door, or how his body seemed to sink with relief when I told him he didn't have to leave. Or maybe it was something else, something I wasn't ready to name. Liam let out a deep breath, his gaze unfocused, drifting. "I feel like I don't really fit anywhere these days," he said suddenly, his voice low, thoughtful. "Like I'm stuck in between who I was and whoever I'm supposed to be next." I studied him for a moment, letting his words settle in the stillness. "That's normal," I said finally. "You're at that age where everything shifts. Friendships, priorities. You start questioning who you are, who you want to be." Liam gave a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, tell me about it." He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, rubbing his hands together slowly. "It's weird though. With most people, I feel like I have to act a certain way, fit into some version of what they expect. But with you," he paused, glancing up at me, "I don't feel that pressure. It's different." Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I cleared my throat, kept my voice even. "Different how?" He hesitated. For a second, I thought he might brush it off, might pull back. But then he looked at me, really looked, and there was something raw in his eyes, something real. You don't judge me, he said softly. Not like other people do. I didn't look away. I let his words land. And I answered with quiet honesty. I don't think there's anything to judge, Liam. He smiled at that, but it was faint, barely there. That's what I mean. His voice dropped, more vulnerable now. My dad, he was always strict. The kind of man who thought being a man meant keeping everything locked up.
No feelings.
No talking. Just push through and move on. When I was younger, I thought that was normal. But then I started coming here, hanging out with Ethan. And I saw the way you were with him. He paused, glancing down at his hands. You listen to people. You don't just hear them, you see them. You try to understand. I shifted slightly in my seat, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. I just try to be the kind of parent I wish I'd had growing up. I admitted. Life's hard enough.
Maybe it was the way he'd hesitated at the door. Or how his body seemed to sink with relief when I told him he didn't have to leave. Or maybe it was something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. Liam let out a deep breath. His gaze unfocused, drifting. I feel like I don't really fit anywhere these days, he said suddenly. His voice low, thoughtful. Like I'm stuck in between who I was and whoever I'm supposed to be next. I studied him for a moment, letting his words settle in the stillness. That's normal, I said finally. You're at that age where everything shifts. Friendships, priorities. You start questioning who you are. Who you want to be. Liam gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah. Tell me about it. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, rubbing his hands together slowly. It's weird though. With most people, I feel like I have to act a certain way. Fit into some version of what they expect. But with you. He paused, glancing up at me. I don't feel that pressure. It's different. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I cleared my throat, kept my voice even. Different how? He hesitated. For a second, I thought he might brush it off. Might pull back. But then he looked at me. Really looked. And there was something raw in his eyes. Something real. You don't judge me, he said softly. Not like other people do. I didn't look away. I let his words land. And I answered with quiet honesty. I don't think there's anything to judge, Liam. He smiled at that. But it was faint, barely there. That's what I mean. His voice dropped, more vulnerable now. My dad, he was always strict. The kind of man who thought being a man meant keeping everything locked up. No feelings. No talking. Just push through and move on. When I was younger, I thought that was normal. But then I started coming here. Hanging out with Ethan. And I saw the way you were with him. He paused, glancing down at his hands. You listen to people. You don't just hear them. You see them. You try to understand. I shifted slightly in my seat, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. I just try to be the kind of parent I wish I'd had growing up, I admitted. Life's hard enough. Without feeling like you have to hide parts of yourself from the people who are supposed to care about you. Liam's fingers twitched slightly where they rested on his knee. Yeah, he murmured. Exactly. The room went quiet again. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was thick. Heavy. Like we were both sitting on the edge of something neither of us knew how to name. I could feel the weight of his words settling between us. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed. Like he was debating whether to say more. And then it happened. Small. Fleeting. But enough to make my breath catch. I reached for my glass. Just as Liam shifted in his seat. And our fingers brushed. Brief. Unmistakable. It was nothing. It should have been nothing. But the moment our skin touched, it was like the air changed. Thicker. My pulse jumped. My body went still. And for a heartbeat, I saw the same flicker in Liam's eyes. The same pause. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then, slowly, deliberately, Liam pulled his hand back. His lips parted slightly, like he was about to speak. But he didn't. Instead, he let out a sharp breath and leaned back, tilting his head against the couch. "I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore," he muttered, more to himself than to me. I forced a small chuckle, trying to shake off whatever that moment had been. "That makes two of us." He turned his head slightly, his eyes locking on mine, lingering longer than they probably should have. "Have you ever wanted something?" he said softly. "But weren't sure if you were allowed to have it?" My grip on my glass tightened. The question hung in the air, weighted with something unspoken. Something dangerous. I should have played it off. Said something light. But instead, I answered honestly. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think everyone has." Liam hummed, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. He looked away, gazing up at the ceiling, like it might hold the answers he couldn't find anywhere else. "That's what I've been struggling with," he said. "This feeling like I don't know what's okay and what's not. What I want. And what I'm supposed to want." I swallowed hard. My chest tightened, with something dangerously close to recognition. "Liam," I said gently, "you don't have to figure it all out tonight." He let out a soft, humorless laugh. "I know. But that doesn't make it any easier." The weight of his words pressed against me, and I tried to ignore the way they made my stomach twist. I didn't know what was happening between us, or if anything was happening at all. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But the tension was there. Quiet. Subtle. Undeniable. I glanced at the clock, realizing just how late it had gotten. "You should probably get some rest," I said, standing to stretch. "It's been a long day." Liam looked up at me, like he wanted to argue. But then he nodded. "Yeah, you're right." He pushed himself up from the couch, his movements slow, deliberate. As he passed me, his arm brushed against mine. Just for a second. Just enough to feel the warmth of his skin. It was a small thing, insignificant to anyone else. But to me, it was a spark. I turned away before I could linger on it, clenching my jaw. This was nothing. It had to be nothing. But as I made my way to my bedroom, I couldn't ignore the way my skin still tingled where he had touched me. The evening stretched on longer than I expected. Liam didn't seem in a rush to leave. And for some reason, I didn't bring it up. Maybe it was the way he'd looked earlier. Lost. Restless. Or maybe it was something else. Unspoken comfort. Of simply having another presence in the house. Either way, the silence between us had shifted into something quieter. Deeper. Something neither of us was willing to name. After cleaning up the kitchen, we settled into the living room. No real discussion. Just flipping through movie selections, while the soft hum of the TV filled the space between us. Finally, Liam pointed to an old action film, a small grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "This one's a classic," he said. I nodded and pressed play. But as the movie began, I realized I was watching Liam more than the screen. He sat comfortably on the couch, his long legs stretched out. One arm draped casually across the backrest. When he leaned back, his shirt had ridden up slightly, exposing just a sliver of skin. And I immediately forced my eyes away. Focus, Michael. I tried to lose myself in the explosions. The car chases. The loud music. But every time Liam laughed, my attention snapped back to him. His laugh was warm, deep, unfiltered. And I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen him so at ease. The tension from earlier seemed to have faded. But then, without realizing it, my gaze lingered. Too long. I watched the subtle rise and fall of his chest. The way his fingers tapped lightly against his thigh, in rhythm with the movie's soundtrack. And then, as if sensing it, Liam turned his head. Our eyes met. And I looked away. Too quickly. My pulse jumped. What the hell are you doing? He didn't say anything. But the air had changed again. Thick with whatever had just passed between us.
A few minutes later, he shifted. Without a word, he reached for the blanket draped over the couch's arm, and pulled it over us both. Like it was nothing. Like it was normal. His body settled back beside mine. Close. Too close. And suddenly, that quiet intimacy felt anything but small. My stomach twisted, tightened in ways I didn't understand. You okay? Liam asked quietly, his voice lower now, as if he'd noticed the change in my breathing. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Yeah, just tired. He hummed in response, his eyes drifting back to the screen. But I wasn't watching anymore. I was too aware of the space between us, of how little of it there was. His arm still rested along the back of the couch, close enough that if I shifted even slightly, we'd be touching. I could feel the heat radiating off him. His presence was inescapable. And then, just when the tension felt unbearable, Liam spoke. Have you ever wanted something you know you shouldn't? The words hit me like a blow to the chest. I swallowed hard, my fingers curling slightly against my thigh. There was nothing casual about the way he'd said it. He wasn't talking about a craving or a passing whim. He meant something real, something between us. I took a breath, forcing my voice to stay steady. That's a dangerous question. Liam gave a small chuckle, but there was no real humor in it. Yeah, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. I guess it is. I should have left it there. Let the silence return. Let the question fade. But instead, I looked at him again, and the look in his eyes told me he wasn't asking for no reason. I cleared my throat, offering a half-laugh to soften the edge. Everyone has thoughts like that at some point, I said carefully. But wanting something doesn't always mean it's right. Liam tilted his head, his gaze steady, searching. So you have. I hesitated. It's not that simple. He didn't press me, but the air between us didn't ease. Stayed thick, charged, like a current neither of us dared touch, but couldn't quite step away from. He shifted slightly, and for just a second, his leg brushed against mine under the blanket. It was brief, barely anything. It should have meant nothing, but I felt it, and I knew. So did he. I turned my attention back to the screen, but the movie had become nothing more than a blur of color and noise. My heart was pounding, too fast, too hard, and every part of me screamed, to keep things normal, to pretend I hadn't felt that pull, that tension, that unbearable awareness of the man beside me. I forced a breath, slow, steady. This is nothing. It has to be nothing. But even as I repeated the lie in my head, I knew the truth. Something had shifted, and there was no going back. The night stretched longer than either of us had planned. The movie ended, but neither of us moved. We just sat there, drifting in the silence, not quite looking at each other, but not ready to break whatever had settled between us. It wasn't exhaustion keeping us there. It was something else entirely. Eventually, Liam shifted. He stretched his arms over his head, then let them fall with a quiet exhale. "Guess I'll just crash on the couch," he said, his voice easy, but his eyes flickered with something else. Something deeper. I nodded, rising to my feet. "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." My voice sounded off. Too distant. Too rehearsed. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the weight of his gaze as I passed by him. Or maybe it was something heavier, the invisible line we kept dancing around. And then, just as I stepped by, just as I was about to retreat behind the safety of that line, Liam reached out and grabbed my wrist. It wasn't forceful, wasn't demanding, just enough to stop me, to make my breath catch.
I turned toward him. Heart thundering. Liam. His fingers tightened slightly. His touch warm and steady against my skin. "I've felt something for a long time," he said quietly. "And I don't think I can keep pretending anymore." The room changed in an instant. The air thickened. Strained. Until it was almost too much. I stood frozen. Staring at him. Knowing exactly what was happening. But unable to fully process it. This is Liam. Ethan's best friend. Someone I had known for years. Watched grow from a teenager into a man. And still. I didn't pull away. I should have. I should have ended it right there. Should have laughed it off. Said something light. Shattered the moment before it could become something neither of us could take back. But I didn't. Because in that moment, I felt it too. The static in the air. The way time seemed to slow between us. His fingers were still wrapped gently around my wrist. Neither of us willing to move. His eyes searched mine. Dark, open, and filled with something raw. Something real. Then he let go. But not before his fingertips skimmed along my palm. Soft and deliberate. The touch sent a quiet shiver through me. And suddenly, the silence between us cracked wide open. No longer something we could deny. My pulse roared in my ears as he stepped closer. And I didn't move away. I couldn't move away. His breath was unsteady. His gaze dropped to my lips. Then back to my eyes. "Tell me I'm wrong," he whispered. I opened my mouth. But no words came. Because I couldn't say it. I couldn't tell him he was wrong. And that was the moment the tension broke. Liam's hands found me first. Not rough. Not uncertain. Just there. Pressed against my chest. Then sliding up. To curl around the back of my neck. Pulling me toward him. Slow. Sure. Inevitable. And I let him. Because some part of me had been waiting for this. Fighting it. Denying it. But it was always there. His lips brushed mine. Not a kiss. But a question. And my hands found his waist. Gripping him. Grounding myself. Against the heat rising fast inside me. I couldn't hear anything. Not the movie. Not the hum of the house. Only the pounding of my own heart. Only him. The way his breath hitched. When I didn't pull away. And then I did. I jerked back like I'd been burned. My chest heaving. My mind spinning. "This can't happen," I whispered. But my voice betrayed me. Cracked, raw. Carrying something I didn't want to name. Liam didn't flinch. Didn't look away. His expression stayed unreadable. His lips parted slightly. As if still tasting the ghost of what had just passed between us. And just like that. It was over. I turned. Heart pounding. Needing distance. Needing air. But deep down. I knew. I'd already let something unravel. And there was no way to pull it back. I'd barely taken a step. When Liam moved. This time with certainty. His hands gripped my waist. His body pressing close. Warmth radiating off him in waves. I should have stopped him. I knew that. But when his lips met mine. Firm. Urgent. Unapologetic. I didn't push him away. I pulled him in. It was raw. Unrestrained. Every hesitation. Every unspoken thought. Every glance we'd been avoiding. It all came crashing out. In that kiss. His fingers gripped the fabric of my shirt. Holding me like he couldn't bear to let go. My hands found his back. Gripping. Grounding myself. Against the rush of heat flooding through me. When I stumbled backward into the couch. He followed. The weight of him against me. His mouth moving against mine. Hungry and searching. Pulled sounds from my throat. I hadn't heard in years. He kissed me like he'd been holding it in for too long. And I met him there. In that storm between us. Somewhere between hurried kisses. And tangled limbs. We found our way to the bedroom. I barely remembered how. Only that the moment my back hit the mattress. He was there again. Breath heavy. Hands moving over me. Tentative but sure. Tracing every line. Learning every reaction. And I let him. Because nothing had ever felt like this. Not this deep. Not this consuming. Not this, right. Even when every rational voice inside me screamed that it was wrong. It didn't feel wrong. He moved against me slowly. His touch reverent. Fingers tracing skin. Like he was memorizing the shape of me. When our hands intertwined. When his breath met mine. When we got lost in the hush of that room. And the fire between us. I knew. We had crossed a line. And there was no going back. The morning light streamed through the curtains. Soft and golden. Yet unforgiving. I blinked awake. My body heavy with exhaustion. My mind fogged by everything that had happened. For a brief moment. I just lay there. Listening to the steady rhythm of Liam's breath beside me. He was still here. And the weight of that hit me all at once. His bare shoulder peeked out from beneath the sheets. His body sprawled beside mine. Face relaxed in sleep. I could still feel the ghost of him. His touch. His mouth. The way he'd looked at me in the quiet darkness of last night. My chest tightened. Conflicted. Torn between the undeniable pull I felt for him. And the harsh truth settling in my bones. What had we done? I sat up carefully. Running a hand over my face. Trying to gather myself. The memories from last night crashed down hard. Vivid, visceral. Too real to push away. It hadn't just been physical. It had meant something. And that terrified me more than anything. Liam stirred beside me. A soft breath escaping his lips. As he shifted slightly under the covers. I froze. Watching as his eyes fluttered open. Still hazy with sleep. Then they found me. For a moment. We didn't say anything. And then a slow, sleepy smile curved across his lips. Morning, he murmured. His voice gravelly from sleep. I swallowed hard. My throat dry. Morning. He rolled onto his side. Propping his head on one hand. You okay? He asked. His voice quieter now. I took a breath. I don't know. His smile faded slightly. But he didn't look away. You regret it? It wasn't a question. Not really. I hesitated. Because I didn't know how to answer. Did I regret it? The way his touch had set me on fire? The way his body had felt against mine? The way every nerve in me had lit up? Like I was finally alive again? No. But did I regret what it meant? The consequences. That was the part one couldn't escape. The fact that I was supposed to be the responsible one. The adult. The man who should have stopped it. Before it ever started. So no. I didn't regret what happened. But I regretted what it meant. I don't regret it, I said finally. My voice softer than before. But I don't know what this means. Liam studied me for a long moment. Then nodded slowly. Like he understood every word I hadn't said aloud. He glanced toward the window. His expression shifting, unreadable. I should probably go. Something twisted in my chest at that. But I nodded anyway. Yeah. He sat up. The sheets pooling around his waist. As he ran a hand through his hair. I watched him from the corner of my eye. Pretending not to notice. How his shoulders tensed. How he hesitated before swinging his legs over the edge of the bed. Silence filled the room. As he gathered his clothes. Dressing slowly. Deliberately. He was stalling. And I realized. So was I. When he finally made his way to the door. He paused. His hand resting on the handle. But he didn't turn around. He just stood there. Like he was deciding something. Then, finally, he looked back at me. I don't know what this means either. He admitted, voice low. But I know I don't want last night to be the last time. My breath caught. He held my gaze a second longer. Something flickering behind his eyes. Something real. Something unfinished. And then. Without another word. He left. The door clicked shut behind him. And I was alone. I sat there for a long time. Staring at the empty space where he had been. My mind replaying every moment. Every touch. Every breath. Every silent confession that passed between us in the dark. The house felt impossibly quiet after he left. The weight of it all pressing down on me like a vice. The sheets still held his warmth. His scent still hung in the air. A reminder that last night hadn't been a dream. My body ached. But not just from what we had done. It was deeper than that. Heavier. I ran a hand through my hair. Exhaling slowly. Trying to center myself. But nothing about this could be steady. Nothing about this could be undone. The moment I let him touch me. The moment I kissed him back. I unraveled something that couldn't be taken back. And now. Now came the fallout. How the hell was I supposed to face Ethan after this? Liam wasn't just some stranger. Not some passing mistake I could forget in the morning. He was my son's best friend. The boy I had watched grow up. The one who had been in and out of this house for years. The one Ethan trusted. And I crossed a line that should have never even been near. I swallowed hard. Guilt curling in my stomach like smoke. Ethan would be back soon. And I'd have to look him in the eye. I'd have to pretend. Pretend nothing had changed. Pretend I hadn't betrayed the one person who trusted me to be better. Could I do that? Could I wear that lie on my face like nothing happened? And even if I could. What about Liam? He said he didn't want last night to be the last time. And maybe a part of me didn't either. But what did I want? I didn't know. I only knew one thing for sure. This was supposed to be the end. But it wasn't. Because no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, Liam was coming back. And when he did, everything would change again.